speaking of an incredible discovery, Chris Butler, you've got an exoplanet story that you want to tell us about here. One that's kind of an interesting exoplanet that's a little different than a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, and it's a good tie-in as well to what Patrick was just talking about with the pictures of Jupiter's atmosphere. As majestic and amazing as those are, who knows what atmospheres are waiting for us out there around exoplanets? Well, that's something that people want to study. We have only just begun to get information on what kinds of atmospheres there may be around these planets. It's going to be very important for us to study. Well, they've found a planet now that looks like it's going to be a great candidate to study. Um, Looking here at some very happy scientists here, Doctors Burt and Dragomir here are lead authors on a paper that was just published. Dr. Burt's working with the Tess team. We'll show you a picture of Tess, and no, it's not a person. Tess did an amazing discovery, and Dr. Dragomir was one of those who followed up on it, and they think they've got something really exciting to look at that may begin to tell us what atmospheres on distant planets around other stars might be like. The discovery of this planet was made by TESS, I mentioned, and as you can see, TESS is actually a spacecraft, the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, and it detected the passage of a planet in front of a star's face, dropping the light a little bit, and so they found out that there is a planet there, and so forth. And if this was confirmed, do you remember last month we talked about Barnard's star B and my frustration and tragedy with the planet? It turned out was not there when other scientists checked the work. Well, the planet finding spectrograph at the Magellan telescope down in Chile did confirm this one spectacularly. Other observatories around the world, again, checking on this and verifying the details of this planet. And it is indeed going to be a very good one to look at for learning about atmospheres. Now, some special restrictions here. TESS has an interesting survey strategy. The Kepler spacecraft, for example, during most of its mission, looked at one part of the sky for a very, very long time. TESS goes all over the place. TESS looks at the whole sky, but to do that, they have to keep repositioning where it looks, and they do that every 28 days. To detect a planet, they need to see it transit or go in front of its star twice. That means the orbit isn't going to be very long. It's going to have to be fast. And that means a planet that's close to its star. And the closer it is, the hotter it presumably is. So most of the planets that TESS has found are very, very hot. Now, they've been hoping they might be able to catch one with as close to a 28-day orbit as they could, right at the edge of possibility, detecting it right at the beginning of their glance at it and right at the end. And they have found one with a 24-day period, meaning a cooler planet, more like the temperatures we'd experience on Earth, more like that. And that alone makes this new planet a really exciting candidate and a standout among the ones that TESS found. There's another benefit to this. This is a simulated picture that I did of what it might look like. Shows the star. It's a dim reddish star called a red dwarf. Not a very big star. It's only about half the size of our sun. And if you look closely, you'll see there a little dot. That would be the actual size of that planet crossing the planet's face. That's big enough, though, that it gives a very clear eclipse and a very strong, good signal. The star is also the best kind with a very bright infrared signature to make it a good target for, among other things, the James Webb Space Telescope we're all waiting for launch for in October. The planet itself is not probably habitable. Earth's orbit, shown there in blue, would be far, far out for this star. It's a smaller star, so you'd have to be somewhere in the green area, the so-called habitable zone for liquid water. This planet, called TOI 1231b, is right on the inside edge. It's not quite Earth-like temperatures, 330 Kelvin for you astronomers, or about 135 degrees Fahrenheit, something like that. But it's not far from Earth-like conditions, and that means scientists really want to get a look at this one. As for what it looks like, I warned you last month, Uh, don't count necessarily on artists' guesses just yet. This is a possibility that I just drew up, but there's a NASA illustration of it that shows it is deep blue and with white fluffy clouds on it. The truth is, we don't know yet, but we do think there's an atmosphere there. We think that because, among other things, we know it's a very large planet. It's about 4 times the size of Earth and 15 times the mass. In other words, it's about like Neptune in our solar system. We expect it's going to have a good atmosphere to study. But as for what that atmosphere might be made of, the details, is this a water-rich atmosphere, a methane-rich atmosphere, and so forth? Scientists do have ideas about the kinds of things it could be, but the fact is we don't know yet. And this is an ideal candidate to look at for a number of reasons. Going through a couple of them. For one thing, the exciting thing about this planet, unlike a lot of test planets, is this one is fairly cool. As I mentioned, a bit like Earth. Another thing, it's a large enough planet around a small enough star that the signal from the planet's eclipses, the light reflected off of the planet, all of these kinds of things will be easier for another telescope to read. So that's fantastic. We also have the situation with the planet's space motion. Here's a weird little extra gimme that it gives us. There are lines in the spectrum, the rainbow light spread out by a spectrograph, that reveal the chemical elements in an atmosphere. One of those happens to be for hydrogen that they really want to look at. And it turns out that we usually can't observe that. There's space dust and things that get in the way of us seeing that. The star system's moving fast enough away from us to redshift that into a clear spot. They're finally going to get their information on that. So that's exciting. So TESS has done its job like a hunting dog. It has sniffed and pointed and barked. It has told us where something is, and all of these other observatories around the world, including the James Webb Telescope here, are going to be having a look. Anyway, that's a report on this new planet. Back to you, Dr. Rice.
Thank you, Chris. That is going to be a lot of fun. Now, that planet probably is not going to be too habitable for humans, but there are moons. You know, we have not found a solid exomoon candidate yet that we can say absolutely is there for sure. But it gets too complicated because you're too close to the planet, the dips, all the rest. But the next generation of these sort of surveys might do it. TESS might find one if we get lucky. But there could be a moon around that planet that could be more habitable for us if it's something the size of, say, Ganymede or a little bigger. We don't know. But these are certainly exciting times for the exo world, the seeing planets and everything else.